Devastating truth revealed at midnight. Did a cowboy's daughter really call the bride angel? The town of Rosewood held its breath. The clock struck midnight, and the air lingered heavy with secrets. At the edge of town, beneath the pallid moonlight, Annie Collins stood frozen in shock. The sound of a woman's voice, sweet yet sharp, echoed through the night, spreading whispers of intrigue. Did she really call the bride angel? It was a simple phrase, but in that moment, it twisted the fabric of their small community into knots of confusion and curiosity. A wave of gasps swept through the nearby onlookers, scrambling for even a hint of what had just transpired. Annie's heart raced as she pieced together fragments of the story. Rumors had been flying, talk of the deceased cowboy, her father, who only months earlier had promised her the world. Now, with his grave fresh and the air thick with nostalgia, every sight, sound, and word was laden with a weight that felt like a ton of bricks. The townsfolk clustered around the old rusty pickup, voices low and conspiratorial, their eyes flicking toward Annie as if expecting her to unravel the mystery. Had her father's ghost somehow returned? Why would he haunt the night? The questions piled up like autumn leaves, rustling uncertainty at every turn. What was more shocking was that not one but two families were implicated, their names swirling through the atmosphere like smoke. The Montgomerys, fiercely proud and with their reputation built on decades of respectability, and the Taylors, known for their fiery past with Annie's family. Whispers of betrayal crept closer, growing louder, drawing attention from every corner of Rosewood. It was only a matter of time before someone stepped forward to shed light on their dark whispers, but Annie's gut screamed that this was much more than petty rivalry. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as the night air seemed to thicken with mystery, a sudden shout cut through the tension. It's not over yet. The crowd turned toward the source, shock etched on their faces. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in a dust-stained jacket, eyes flashing with secrets untold. Who was this stranger, and what did they know about the midnight revelation that had everyone on edge? Annie's mind raced. Secrets could burn brighter than conflagrations and just as quickly incinerate everything. She felt a strange chill, one that settled in the pit of her stomach. This was not just about a bride, it was about something deeper, something that could turn their idyllic little town into a cauldron of chaos. And she was right in the middle of it. Who would be brave enough to dig into the darkness? She clenched her fists, knowing that whatever lay ahead could either save or shatter her world forever. The crowd gasped collectively as the figure stepped into full view. It was a man weathered, with a stubbly jaw and eyes that glinted like shards of ice. His voice was steady, but it carried the weight of unsaid truths. You all want to know the truth about that word, angel, don't you? He called out, piercing through the murmurs like a knife. Gasps intensified, followed by an anxious hush. Annie's heart thumped wildly in her chest. Was this man a harbinger of chaos, or could he hold the key to unraveling the mess her life had become? The atmosphere crackled, charged with anxiety. She could almost taste it in the air, a metallic tang of confusion and fear. Who are you? Someone from the crowd shouted, challenge thrown defiantly into the night. The man paused, eyes narrowing on the questioner before he turned back to the crowd, taking a moment to let the tension stretch. My name is Caleb, he replied, and I've been away far too long. His gaze skated over the assembled townsfolk before resting on Annie. There are things I need to say about your father. Annie felt a lump form in her throat. Caleb had been her father's friend, the kind that mixed with family and attached memories she thought had been long buried. Why did he emerge now, on this fateful night? Her mind raced, spinning like a whirlwind of fragmented thoughts. So many questions surged within her, demanding answers. Why did you come back? She finally managed to ask, each word deliberate as if giving voice to her rising dread. Caleb stepped forward, bringing a wave of sympathetic energy that mingled with a scent of long-forgotten whiskey and sadness. Because I owe it to your father, he said slowly. He didn't die as you think he did. It was a cover-up, a secret. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Annie's gut twisted. What could be worse than death? She felt lightheaded, almost suspended in disbelief. What do you mean? What kind of secret? The stranger's eyes flickered, revealing flickers of pain intertwined with resolve. He wasn't just a cowboy, Annie. He was the keeper of a truth that could shake the very foundations of Rosewood. He hesitated, teeth grazing his lips as if suppressing something monumental. And if I tell you, it could turn this town against everything you hold dear, he declared. It felt like thunder rolling over the mountains, an ominous warning resonating in the depths of her soul. People have already turned against each other, someone added, a voice heavy with suspicion. What one more secret? Caleb shot a piercing stare toward the dissenting voice and then back to Annie. Some destinies are tied to the fate of others. Find out the truth, and you might see everything you thought you knew unravel right before your eyes. The wind whipped through the assembled crowd, a chilling reminder of the gravity of his words. Annie felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. This wasn't just a conversation anymore, it was a confrontation with a past that sought entanglement with her present. Suddenly, sirens echoed in the distance, an approach that disrupted the tense standoff. Annie's breath hitched, time felt like it had stopped. What would happen if the town authorities showed up in the middle of this explosion? She couldn't allow secrets to die with her father, but she had no idea how deep the betrayal went or who would stand with her in the storm to come. Annie took a step toward Caleb, determination igniting like wildfire in her heart. Tell me everything, she urged. I need to know. But as her words hung in the air, the sound of tires crunching on gravel signaled that choices would soon be forced upon them. The crowd began to scatter, fear spreading like the end of a match against the earth. Shadows danced behind the headlights, and Annie realized it was only the beginning. What truth lay ahead, mingled with danger and desperation? The sirens drew closer, but the night's revelations lingered ominously like echoes of their past. What would they mean for the futures they thought they'd known? Annie's heart raced as the sirens blared, cutting through the murmur of panicked whispers and the crunch of hurried footsteps fleeing into the darkness. She felt rooted to the spot, a mixture of fear and curiosity gripping her. Caleb's presence loomed larger, a silent beacon drawing her back from the brink of flight. Annie, he said urgently, his voice low, you can't let them chase away the truth. Your father, he was embroiled in something bigger than any of us can comprehend. What are you talking about? She shot back, her voice trembling but intent. The crowd was dispersing, but her focus zeroed in on Caleb. What could possibly be worse than what I've lost? Caleb's eyes lowered for a moment, as though he wrestled with his own demons. The angel, he began cautiously, isn't just a name. It was a code of warning buried in the shadows of this town. There are forces behind those who control the narrative. Your father was a part of it, and so are you. Me? She nearly scoffed, but the spark in his eyes stopped her. What do you mean? Your father's death wasn't random, he pressed, urgency threading through his words. He uncovered something that threatened to expose those in power. Before he could go public, they silenced him. And they'll come for you too if they find out you're looking for answers. The air between them crackled with unspoken fears and truths. Annie felt the weight of his words press down on her chest, suffocating yet igniting a dreadful sense of purpose within. But what did he find? What was he protecting? Caleb tilted his head slightly, the dim light illuminating the deep lines of worry etched across his face. I can't say everything here. They can't know what we're planning. He broke eye contact, scanning the scattering crowd. We need to move. Meet me at the old barn on the outskirts of town. There's something that can expose the truth. Annie hesitated, torn between the desire to flee and the burning need for answers. Fear rippled through her, but determination surged beneath it. What did she have to lose? Okay, she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet the conviction vibrated in her bones. I'll be there. Caleb nodded. Head straight for it. Don't look back. As he melted into the chaos, Annie's mind raced, juggling thoughts of her father and the impending threat. What secrets did that barn hide? What if it held the truth of their lives, tethered to the very heart of Rosewood? Just then, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Jake, her childhood friend. "Annie!" he shouted, panic coloring his features. "We should go home now." "The police, yeah, and let them spin the story?" she countered, shaking her head fiercely. "We have to find out what Caleb knows first." "Are you insane?" he snapped, fear pulsing through his words. "He just hinted at people being after you. It's not safe." Hot anger washed over her, fueled by the weight of her decisions. "What is not safe is ignoring what happened to my father. If I don't learn the truth, it'll haunt me forever." Jake ran a hand through his hair, visibly torn. "Fine. But if something happens to you, I won't forgive myself." Determination flared as she turned her back on the chaos, her feet moving toward destiny. With every step toward the barn, echoes of memories turned ghostly, formed in her mind: the laughter, the long talks with her father about right and wrong, the stories he weaved about loyalty and betrayal. Loyalty could betray her now. Fear followed her like a shadow. As she reached the edge of town, the wind howled, carrying with it an unshakable doubt. Would the truth bring her closure or only deeper darkness? And as she neared the barn, Annie's gut told her one thing: the answer lay within those crumbling walls. But would she be ready for what she found? The path to the barn was overgrown, brushing against her legs like restless spirits. Each step felt heavier than the last as the shadows danced around her. The chill in the air wrapped around her shoulders like an unwelcome blanket. Was it the eerie night or the weight of Caleb's revelations that sent shivers down her spine? The barn loomed ahead, its silhouette dark and foreboding against the moonlit sky. She hesitated, heart pounding. What could possibly lie within those rotting beams? 1,000 questions raced through her mind as she approached the creaky door, its hinges groaning in protest. "Just open it," she muttered under her breath, urging herself on. With a deep breath, she pushed the door aside and stepped inside. The scent of dusty hay and old wood engulfed her. Dim light filtered through cracks in the walls, barely illuminating the disarray. It was just as she remembered, only now it felt ominous, almost alive. Shadows flickered around her like dark whispers. "Caleb?" she called, her voice echoing back, swallowed by the vast emptiness. Silence settled back in, thick and unsettling. Annie moved deeper, each footfall echoing in her ears. The barn was a maze of memories, childhood laughter intertwined with secrets sketched into the grain of the wood. But now, it felt like a crypt, and she was the unwitting mourner. Suddenly, a clattering sound echoed through the rafters. Her heart leapt. She spun around, eyes wide, adrenaline surging. "Who's there?" she shouted. Reaching for her phone, she pulled it from her pocket, its screen light casting a narrow beam. It fell on a figure crouched in the far corner: Caleb. He looked rushed, a sheen of sweat glimmering on his forehead. "Annie!" he hissed, urgency lacing his tone. "We don't have much time. They may have followed you." "Who? What's going on?" The questions tumbled out, her frustration mounting. "Listen," he interrupted, stepping closer with intensity. "I found something. Your father, he left clues. Notes, files, he was onto something big. We can't let that fall into the wrong hands." Her breath caught. "What did he find?" Caleb frantically rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a stack of papers, worn and crumpled at the edges. This is what they kill to keep hidden." She reached for the papers, their weight heavy with implication. But before she could unravel the first layer of truth, a deafening crash echoed off the barn walls. The front door burst open, sending splinters flying. 3 shadowy figures stormed in, their faces obscured by hoods. One of them, a tall man with a menacing presence, pointed directly at them. "You shouldn't have come here." Panic surged through Annie, her chest tightening. "Run!" she shouted, shoving the papers into Caleb's hands. He hesitated just long enough for her to see the fear in his eyes. "Go!" she urged, and with a sudden burst of adrenaline, she grabbed his arm, dragging him toward a side exit. They dashed through the maze of shadows, hearts thundering as the men followed closely behind. As they reached the doorway, Caleb glanced back, urgency pulsing in his gaze. "We can't leave without forget it." she yelled, pulling him out into the safety of the night, desperation propelling them forward. But could they truly escape the darkness drawing closer? The path behind them was swallowed whole by the shadows, the sound of footsteps fading, but the threat lingered in the air, palpable and chilling. Huddling behind a fallen fence, Annie's mind raced. What was her father's truth? And why did it matter so much that they would chase her to the ends of town? Annie, Caleb whispered, drawing her attention. We need to hide. If they find us they'll stop at nothing. The urgency grew, pulsating in the back of her mind like a ticking clock. She felt that familiar weight looming over her, loyalty battling against the desire for survival. They were on the verge of a revelation, wrapped in layers of danger. And just as Annie thought they were safe, she heard a voice on the wind, haunting and insistent. You'll never uncover the truth. The words hung in the space between breaths. Who was watching? It was clear now, the game had only just begun. What did her father's secrets truly mean for her life? They had escaped the shadows, but the darkness was far from over. And soon, Annie would have to confront the reality lurking in the depths of her father's legacy. Annie pressed her back against the splintered wood of the fence, its rough texture grounding her amidst the chaos. They had made it outside, but the night was still thick with fear. Frantically, her heart raced, pounding against her ribs as if it sought a way out. She could still feel the weight of the papers Caleb clutched, heavy with secrets that could shatter everything she thought she knew. Where do we go? She barely whispered the words, feeling the weight of desperation clawing at her throat. The dim light of her phone flickered in Caleb's trembling hands, casting eerie shadows around them. Not far, he breathed, glancing around as if the mere sight of them would give them away. There's a shed behind the next field. It's not far. We can hide there. Annie nodded, forcing herself to breathe. The cool air felt sharp in her lungs. They darted through the tall grass, ducking low, every sound amplified the rustling leaves, their own footsteps muffled by the anxious silence. She could hear her heartbeat, each thought echoing in her ears. As they sprinted, Annie stole a glance back at the barn. It loomed there like a silent sentinel, keeping watch over the secrets running through her blood. The shadows that had once felt familiar now pressed in, swirling with a darkness she couldn't shake. Suddenly, Caleb stumbled. Annie, wait. He hissed. He bent low, clutching his side. Are you okay? She crouched beside him, alarm racing through her. Just give me a second. He gritted his teeth, trying to steady his breath. A piercing scream echoed from the barn. Annie's heart plunged. We can't stay here. He nodded, forcing himself upright. They moved again, pushing through the grass, desperation driving them. The shed appeared, a weathered structure nestled between two trees, overgrown but offering an illusion of safety. They dove inside, the rusty door creaking ominously behind them. Dust motes danced in the sliver of moonlight filtering through a tiny window. The air was heavy, laden with the smell of old tools and forgotten memories. What now? She asked, squinting into the darkness. Do we go back to the barn? Caleb shook his head fervently. No, we can't. Those men they won't stop. They'll do anything to keep whatever your father discovered under wraps. The tension in the shed thickened as Annie's thoughts raced. But what did he find? Why are we in danger? Caleb rummaged through his backpack, his hands trembling. We need to read the files. It's all connected. The notes they point to something large, something corrupt. Your father was onto it. He handed her the papers, and she fumbled to open them. The words blurred together, panic rising. Each page detail felt like a piece of a puzzle she desperately needed to complete. As she read, she felt the room spin. There were names she recognized, places she understood. This can't be real, she gasped, her hands shaking. It is. And if we don't figure this out, there's a good chance we'll be next, Caleb whispered urgently, his eyes darting toward a crack in the shed wall. Their world had upended in mere moments, and the weight of her father's secret echoed through her like thunder. The realization hit her like a wave. The truth might unravel more than just her past. Footsteps approached, the sound tearing through her thoughts. Annie's heart jumped into her throat. "They're here," she hissed, shoving the papers back at Caleb. "We have to hide," he urged, pointing toward a darkened corner filled with debris. They crouched, breathing silently as the door creaked slightly, revealing a silhouette. The intruder paused, tension thick in the air. A second figure appeared, another shadow lurking in the gloom. "I can hear them," the first man said, voice low and gravelly. "They must be close. Don't let them slip away." Annie felt panic surge through her. She clenched her fist, fighting the urge to scream. Could they survive this night? The intruders exchanged words, discussing methods that made her skin crawl. A chilling thought processed in her mind. This was about more than just her father's past, it was about her future. Would she even survive to see dawn? Just then, she caught a glint of metal from the shadowy figures. It was a gun. The knot in her stomach tightened, and as reality wrapped around her, she realized this was only the beginning. The true fight for her life was just on the horizon, and the shadows of the past wouldn't stay buried much longer. Annie took a deep breath, resolve tightening her chest. Would they emerge victorious, or would the secrets consume her? The night was far from over. Annie's breath caught in her throat, the sheer weight of the moment anchoring her to the dusty ground. The figures outside shifted, their voices a chilling murmur that twisted in the cramped space of the shed. "Check under the workbench," the second man grunted. "They might be hiding in here." Caleb tightened his grip on her arm, a silent promise that they would get through this. With every passing second, Annie felt the air in the shed grow heavier, the staleness wrapping around her like a shroud. The men's boots crunched on the gravel outside, each step sending vibrations through the wooden floor beneath them. As that metallic glimmer danced in the shadows, her mind raced. She remembered the tales her father used to tell, about fights at dawn and dark deeds done in the name of family. This wasn't just about her father, it was about her, a clash between the past and an uncertain future that now hung by a thread. "Do you hear that?" the first man whispered, his voice slicing through the suffocating tension. Caleb leaned closer, whispering, "We need to distract them. Buy us some time." Annie nodded, her heart pounding like a war drum. She scanned the shed, her eyes catching on a rusted pickaxe hanging on the wall. It might not be enough, but it was better than sitting still. "I can throw it," she whispered back, "and you can slip out the other side." "No, we stick together," Caleb insisted, eyes wide with defiance. But the urgency in his voice betrayed a different story. He knew they were running out of options. At that moment, the gravel outside shifted again, and one of the figures leaned closer to the door. "We're wasting time here. They can't have gone far. Let us search the shed." Panic flooded Annie's veins. This was it. "I'll do it," she hissed. "On 3. Caleb took a breath, their eyes locking. She felt the strength from him, but they had no choice. 1, 2, 3. With a swift movement, Annie grabbed the pickaxe and hurled it toward the far end of the shed. The weapon clanged against the far wall before crashing to the ground. The men's heads whipped toward the noise, a moment of confusion washing over their faces. "Go!" she yelled, shoving Caleb toward the gaping shadows. They slipped out through a crack in the back, the chill of the night air hitting them like a slap. The moon cast an ethereal glow over the fields as they sprinted hard, every step a beat of survival echoing in their ears. The distant sounds of the men shouting filled the air, panic gripping them both. Annie's legs burned as they darted into the moonlit expanse. "Where now?" she panted, scanning the landscape for familiar landmarks. "Head toward the trees," Caleb urged, pointing toward the woods that bordered the property. "We'll lose them there." But as they ran, an eerie quiet fell over the area. The only sounds were their labored breaths and the pounding of their hearts. Just as they broke into the cover of the trees, a shout rang out behind them, sending ice through Annie's veins. "Don't let them get away." Annie glanced back just in time to see one of the men break through the edge of the shed, a gun now visibly gripped in his hand. Her stomach dropped. They were close, too close for comfort. Panic surged as they plunged deeper into the darkness, branches scratching against their arms. "We can't stop," Caleb urged, pushing ahead. We need to keep moving. But Annie's thoughts were racing faster than her legs. What had been unearthed was more dangerous than they had imagined. The secrets they had uncovered tonight were already costing them everything. The truth lay somewhere ahead, but who would pay the price? As they reached the edge of the trees, a shadowy figure emerged, blocking their path. Annie froze, dread pooling in her gut. Was it another threat, or could they finally find a sliver of hope in this terrifying night? Stop right there! The figure commanded, voice deep and menacing. Annie took a shaky breath, fate hanging in the balance. Would they again be hunted, or had they just walked straight into a potential rescue? The moon cast a cold light on the truth ahead, and they were about to confront a new layer of darkness that could either save them or seal their doom. Who are you? She dared to ask, heart racing, knowing well this moment could change everything. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a tall man clad in black, a wide-brimmed hat shadowing his eyes. He stood there, framed by the gnarled branches overhead, like a specter from a forgotten tale. The air thickened around Annie as she fought to read his expression, her heart hammering a rapid tattoo in her chest. Answer me! He barked, the sharpness of his tone jolting her from her daze. Annie swallowed hard. Who are you? Doesn't he matter? What matters is why you're here, he said, voice low as if he carried burdens past the night. You're in a bad place, and it's gonna cost you. Caleb stepped closer to Annie, his body tense beside her. We're just trying to get away, he said, his voice steadier than Annie felt. We didn't mean any trouble. The man let out a hollow laugh, eyes narrowing. Trouble has a way of finding you, girl. Especially on nights like this. His gaze darted to the shadows behind them, and Annie could feel the danger snapping at their heels, as real as the crunch of gravel beneath their feet. Let us go, Annie pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. We were just what? Escaping your past? He interrupted, stepping closer, which heightened her fear. Because that's not how it works in these woods. Suddenly, a shout erupted from the path they had eliminated moments before. The men were still on them, relentless. We need to move. Caleb urged, panic bubbling in his voice. The man in black held up a hand. Not yet. He focused on the sound of approaching footsteps, narrowing his gaze into a fierce glare, as if willing the men to turn back. Why should we trust you? Annie challenged, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I'm your only chance. He leaned in, close enough that she could see the weathered lines etched deeply into his skin. They aren't just out for a game. You've crossed a line tonight you don't understand. Annie's pulse raced with uncertainty. Caleb's hand tightened around her arm, grounding her as shadows danced between branches. What does he mean? Caleb asked, fear-laced with curiosity. The man exhaled slowly, his demeanor shifting to one of grim determination. Your father's name isn't just mud in the ground. It's a legacy. And tonight, you've stirred things best left buried. Another shout cut through the air, closer now, and Annie could feel the panic of their pursuers echoing in her veins. We can't stay here, she urged. Then come with me, the man said abruptly. I can help you, but it won't be easy. There are loyalties that run deeper than blood, and you've just set the world on fire. Annie looked at Caleb, searching for clarity in his eyes. What if he leads us into more danger? The man rolled his shoulders, impatience clear in his posture. Make a choice, sweetheart. Either you trust me, or you'll end up caught between your father's past and men who want blood. Time stretched painfully around them. Annie felt the weight of destiny pressing down, every second crystal clear. Behind them, the footsteps drew near, growing louder, more urgent. Now! The man snapped, urgency shoving through his voice. Annie hesitated, torn between staying rooted in familiarity and the dread of the unknown. The dark woods whispered threats she couldn't ignore, but the looming figure offered a glimmer of hope in the chaos. Let us go! Caleb cried, grabbing her hand and tugging her forward. As they moved, the shadows thickened around them, branches snagging at their clothes as if protesting their escape. The man led them deeper into the forest, while the sounds of pursuit rapidly faded into the backdrop of their frantic breaths. What's the plan? Caleb asked between gasps, glancing back into the darkness. The man turned briefly, a flicker of determination glinting in his eyes. To survive. To find out just how deep your family's secrets run. And I bet you'll wish you'd never opened that door. Annie shivered, fear mingling with resolve. What awaited them in the depths of those woods? The shadows stretched and twined around them like hungry ghosts, and an unsettling thought clawed at her mind. Could the truth be more? Lurking in the darkness? Keep moving. The man urged, breaking the silence, as Annie's heart raced toward an unknown fate. Would they unleash a darkness greater than themselves? As moonlight bathed the trees with trembling shadows, their journey echoed with the unanswerable question. What monstrous truth lay waiting just beyond the threshold? The night wrapped around them like a suffocating shroud, the trees hunching closer as they moved deeper into the forest. Each step crackled with the anxiety of the chase and the weight of secrets that seemed to breathe between the shadows. Annie felt as if the very earth was alive beneath her feet, warning her to turn back, but she pressed on, heart pounding in time with the distant shots that echoed like thunder in her ears. Where are we going? Caleb demanded, fear spilling over in his voice. He kept glancing behind, as if each rustle of leaves might bring the hunters crashing through. To a place of safety for now, the man in black replied, his tone clipped, giving nothing away. Annie's mind raced, battling the facts as they swirled in her mind like the fog creeping in from the nearby hills. Why are they after us? What did my father do? Her voice trembled, betraying the resolve she struggled to keep. They want what you carry, the legacy tied to your blood. They want your father's sins, he said, turning briefly to meet her gaze with an intensity that cut through the night. Annie stumbled over an exposed root, and Caleb caught her before she fell. What do you mean? He was just a man, she urged, disbelief ringing harsh in her voice. Not just any man. He was a key to something bigger, a situation buried under lies, blackmail, and blood oaths, the man replied, a sharp edge to his tone. The past is clawing its way back, and it won't be satisfied until it claims what it believes is owed. As they rounded a bend, a dense canopy of black loomed ahead. The man gestured to a gnarled tree with a massive hollow in its trunk, a secret door disguised by time. Inside. Quickly. They're not far behind. Annie hesitated. What if it's a trap? It's the only chance you've got, he insisted. The urgency in his voice brooked no argument, and for a moment, Annie felt the grasp of fate pull at her, urging her forward against every instinct screaming to run. Caleb took her hand. We have to trust him, Annie. We can't backslide now. There is no other way, he whispered, the tension in his voice reminding Annie of the grasp of fear tightening around their throats. Now. The man growled, thrusting aside the branches that concealed the entrance. They dove into the hollow, pulling the ragged bark shut behind them. Inside, darkness enveloped them like a thick fog, and Annie strained to hear the faint sounds from the outside world. Do we have any idea how far they are? Caleb whispered, his breath warm against her ear. Not far, but close enough that we can't afford to linger, the man said. This hiding place isn't permanent. We need to move once the coast is clear. Annie felt a surge of claustrophobia as the darkness pressed in. What is in here? What is this place? She stammered, straining to adjust to the lack of light. There was a rustle beyond the tree, and they fell silent, holding their breaths. Outside, voices mingled with the wind, raising the hairs on the back of Annie's neck. Split up, one voice commanded, muffled but assertive. Find them. Panic welled within her as she clutched Caleb's hand tighter. They're here. What do we do? Just wait, the man hissed. The tension in his voice sent a shiver through her, each second stretching out like an eternity. Of footsteps approached, crunching the underbrush, and the darkness around them thickened, as if alive and holding its breath with them. In that moment, a sudden realization hit Annie. Whatever was chasing them was more than just men. It was something far darker, something that had always been waiting, a beast that stalked the shadows of her family's legacy. Get ready, the man whispered, his breath steadying. It's time you learned the truth. As the low murmurs outside turned to shouts, Annie's heart thundered in her chest. She realized this was only the beginning. Would they emerge to find the truth or face a nightmare of consequences that had been hidden for far too long? what unspeakable forces awaited them just beyond the hollow? The air inside the hollow felt slick with tension, pressing in on all sides. Annie's heart raced, and she could taste the metallic pull of fear in her mouth. It clawed at her insides, twisting her stomach like a vice. "What do you mean, learn the truth?" she whispered frantically, each word laced with urgency. The man's dark silhouette flickered as he shifted closer, his eyes gleaming in the dim light that barely seeped through the bark. "The truth about who you are, Annie. And why they want you," he said, his voice low and urgent, almost drowned out by the growing commotion outside. Caleb squeezed her hand now, harder. Their breaths mingled, quick and panicked as they listened carefully. Murmurs transformed into growls, the language harsh and foreign. "Please," Annie said, more to herself than anyone else, fingers trembling with fear. Suddenly, a violent rustle erupted just outside their shelter, branches snapping like brittle bones. Annie's body froze, and her skin prickled as if a storm was brewing just beyond the entrance. The man in black turned sharply, the intensity in his gaze solidifying with purpose. "Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let go of each other," he commanded. Caleb nodded, his face pale but determined. Annie's eyes darted around, trying to piece together a plan. What was it about her? What bloodline carried such a burden that it warranted the relentless pursuit by faceless hunters? Yeah, that's how it felt, like something far beyond a mere human obsession. They were chasing a ghost, one that lingered in the shadows cast by her father's history. Her breathing accelerated as footsteps approached the entrance, heavy and deliberate, interspersed with whispers that seemed to tease the edges of her sanity. "They're here," she choked, trying to will the words of fear back down into her throat. The man in black steeled himself, taking a deep breath. "Remember, trust is all you have. Trust yourself." Annie wanted to retort, how could she trust herself? She barely even knew the man in black, let alone the depths of her own existence. But before she could voice her disquiet, the door of the hollow shuddered. "What was that?" Caleb whispered sharply, alert as a rabbit on the run. "Shoo!" The man imposed silence, his body tense. All they could hear was the steady thrum of their hearts, and then the unmistakable scrape of something or someone against the trunk. Annie's breath hitched in anticipation. "Find them!" A voice commanded again, louder this time, more desperate. "They must be close." Annie's mind raced, images of her father swarming her thoughts. The laughter at family gatherings, the stories told by dim candlelight. None of it felt dangerous until now. Could he have known? Had he hidden something from her? The whispers grew louder, crashing like waves against the shoreline of her memories. "Annie," Caleb said suddenly, "what if they're here for you? What if you're something more?" The world spun, and an icy wave of dread washed over her. The man gripped Annie's shoulder, grounding her. "This is why we must be quick. They may not guess what you truly are. That is your only advantage. But it won't last." The hollow creaked ominously, shadows stretching as the hunters shouted again. Annie's throat tightened. The truth of her lineage loomed like a beast encaged, one she had the power to unleash or be devoured by, and then, a sharp crack. The door burst open, plunging the darkness into chaos. "No!" she screamed, as blinding light swept into the hollow like the herald of inevitable doom. What had they unleashed? Would Annie confront her legacy, or would she fall prey to forces more powerful than she could ever understand? Outside, the moon hung low, a powerful eye in the restless night and waiting for its moment to reveal the unimaginable. The light flooded the hollow, illuminating the man in black and his resolute stance. Annie squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable chaos. But instead of violence, an eerie calm settled within her. "Stay behind me," the man commanded, urgency painting his voice. When she finally opened her eyes, she gasped. Those who had been hunting them now stood before the entrance, silhouetted against the moonlight, a trio of ominous figures wielding glinting weapons that flickered like stars in a cold sky. They had finally found them. "What do you want?" Annie's voice quivered, steady yet soft. It was a gamble to confront them, but she felt a flicker of courage ignite within. The leader of the group stepped forward, eyes narrowing dangerously. We want what belongs to us, he spat, teeth clenched, every word laced with venom. Your father meddled where he didn't belong. You don't know what you've stumbled into. As her pulse quickened, Annie glanced at Caleb, who remained steadfast at her side, resolute and unyielding. She could almost hear his heartbeat, steady and rhythmic, a pulse of determination against the iron grip of fear surrounding them. The man in black held firm, hands raised to dissuade further escalation. You're out of your depth. You don't have to do this. Let the girl go. Not a chance. The leader shot a glance at Annie, a sneer curling his lips. She's the key to everything. Her existence complicates things. She represents a threat we can't afford. Annie reeled from the confirmation and felt air rush out of her lungs. Me? Why me? The question spiraled in her brain, tension wrapping tighter around her like a vice. But just then, a sudden resolve filled her. She could no longer play the victim. If I'm a threat, then let us settle this now, she said, stepping forward, partially shielded by the man in black. What are you afraid of? I want to know the truth. There was a beat of silence, a ripple of surprise in the air. The leader shifted, momentarily taken aback by her audacity. You've taken a big step, girl. Do you really want to know? I do. The fire in her voice burned bright. I have to know what's going on. Who you all are. What my father was mixed up in. The man in black turned to Annie, his eyes fierce, as if weighing the potential consequences of her decision. Annie, don't, but she interrupted. No. This is my family's legacy. If it means fighting back, I need to take responsibility. The leader chuckled, a humorless sound that echoed throughout the hollow. You want the truth? Fine. We'll give you the truth. At that moment, a sudden rustling echoed through the trees behind them. It was enough to snap the leader's attention. Enough with this. The leader drew closer, suddenly threatened but sounding harsh. Get out of the way. Without warning, Caleb lunged forward. Run! He shouted, his voice shaking yet commanding. Annie quickly rushed out through the doorway, her instincts kicking in. They were right on their heels, darkness pursuing them faster than the truth could catch up. Adrenaline surged through her, propelling her forward. Annie! Caleb! The man in black's voice rang out between shouts and panicked breaths. This way! As they darted through trees and shadows, Annie felt a flicker of power course through her. There was something deep within calling forth strength, anger molded into a weapon. Don't let them catch you! The man in black shouted again, his figure stalking behind them. She tightened her grip on Caleb's hand, pulling him along as they dashed through the underbrush, branches raking at their skin like seeking claws. The moonlight cut through the trees ahead, leading them toward an opening, perhaps safety if they could only reach it. Annie! Came the gruff voice of their pursuer. We know where you are. You're just delaying the inevitable. But then, at the edge of the clearing, memories came rushing back. Her father's laughter blended with the whispers of danger that danced through her dreams. She turned suddenly, halting in place. No! She yelled in defiance, her voice bouncing off the trees. I will not be afraid of the past any longer. In an instant, the shadows surrounding her flickered as if caught in a gust of wind, swirling with whispers only she could hear. She could see the men behind her hesitating, confused by her sudden shift. Light sparked in her mind, it was fueled by realization. Your love of power is built on lies. I won't let it continue. I'm breaking the chain. The mystical force surged around her, memories coalescing into a wave of energy that radiated from within. For a split second, she stood at the crossroads of her legacy, tethered to her father, the betrayal, and the darkness that lingered. Annie! Caleb cried, sensing her inner change, betrayal in his voice. Don't channel that. It might, but it was too late. A beam of ethereal light burst forth, crashing against the figures of the men who guarded her past a blindness that left them momentarily paralyzed. The power of her father's legacy became her own. And Annie felt liberated. As dawn approached, the shadows receded, fading under the rising sun. A sudden stillness enveloped them. Breathing heavily, the men faltered, struggling to hold their ground against the newly emerged strength radiating from Annie. She felt a sense of finality pulse within her. Stay away. This ends now. In that moment, the blend of confusion and anger collided with the essence of power. Annie took a step forward, ready to reclaim her story, her truth, and the legacy that was rightfully hers. The hunters collapsed, the darkness they thrived on shattered in the brightness. The man in black hovered at the edge of the scene, eyes wide with disbelief at what he had witnessed. I knew there was more to you, he murmured, pride radiating through his affirmation. Now you must finish what was started. As morning light filtered through the trees, a new chapter awaited one Annie would write with the strength of the truth finally liberated. The darkness had been banished, but the history would continue, and so would she, alive and unafraid. The legacy that was once an anchor in shadows transformed into her wings of purpose. She wouldn't just uncover the truth, she would become its guardian. And so, as the first rays of light broke through the treetops, Annie Collins took a brave step forward, head held high, ready for the future. This is the moment you've been waiting for. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next incredible stories that are about to unfold. Smash the like button now to support us and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about what just happened, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this journey. Your support matters, and only true fans understand how important your actions are for this channel. Let's make this community thrive.